discuss Can You Ever Leave a Universe Behind? Before we get into the discussion, we should introduce our panelists. To my left is the very fragrant Mr. Wesley Chu, in a good way, for a change. Immediately to my right we have Anne Lyle, to Anne's right Kelly McCullough, and Patrick Tomlinson over at the end. So we'll welcome all of my panelists. Oh, no, I'm Lee, by the way. Okay, well, we're talking about Can You Ever Really Leave a Universe Behind? The panel description says, in modern times, can you ever really end a series? Does I'm done only mean done for now? So we'll talk about books, we'll talk about TV, we'll talk about comics, we'll talk about the series that our panelists themselves write. Before we go on, I'd just like to go to each of our panelists for them to give a little very brief introduction as to the universe that they're most well known for writing. So, if I could start with Wesley.
Hi. First of all, thanks for coming, guys. It is the beginning of the convention, so there's a lot of things you can do right now besides sit with us, but since you guys are on. My name is Wesley Chu. I'm best known for the Tau series, first book called The Lives of Tau, and incidentally, the guy who actually bought that book is sitting right next to me.
More than one person's bought that book.
Bought that at least to publish.
Oh.
So the Lives of Tau is my most well-known series, and I have a new series coming out starting next week called Time Salvager, and it is coming out next week, but you can pick it up today at the Dream Haven, or I have a few copies on me.
Cool, thank you very much. Well, tell us a little about the Tau series. What's
Okay.
that all about?
So the Tau series, it's about an ancient alien who inhabits an out-of-shape loser and convinces him to train and get in shape and fight in a civil war over control of humanity's evolution. That's the 1,000-mile bird's eye view.
Pretty small-scale stuff. And yours is a very different series.
Yes, I have a trilogy out also by Andrew Robert, and which is set in late 16th century Europe in the time of Shakespeare, and features humanoids from the New World, people who are not human but are living alongside the native humanoids.
Kelly?
I'm probably best known for my first two series, which came out from Penguin, the Webmage series and the Fallen Blade books. The first set is a cyberpunk contemporary fantasy crossover series. The second set is Assassins in what is probably best described in presses as a thinly disguised Heian China. And then I've got a new series that will be coming out starting in August, which is my first set of books for younger readers, which is Silly Superhero Sidekicks.
Patrick?
Nobody knows crap about me yet, so just start there. But my debut novel's coming out in November. It's called The Ark. It's set a couple hundred years after Earth is swallowed by a black hole on a 10-mile-long generation ship. So that's the first of a 2 and possibly more book series. So I don't actually know if you can get away from the series or not yet. I haven't.
Well, if you did, it would be a really short panel.
It's true. Yeah.
So let's leave the actual answer to a little later on, I think. Well, okay. So before we get on to the actual question, can you leave the universe behind? What does it take from a writer's point of view to actually devise and populate one of these things in the first place? Because it can't be 10 minutes work. How much effort goes into something like this? Let's start with Ken, please.
For me, I do a lot of my work beforehand. I'm a world builder first, and that's what I get excited about. And so when I'm doing something, I'm actually specifically creating a universe. And I look at, in the case of the Webmage universe, I'm like, okay, and this will be a quick idea of how old I am. I was looking at the then fairly new World Wide Web, and said to myself, this looks like a great metaphor for a multiple worlds series a la Amber. And so I started playing around with that, and once I had the core structure, then I'm like, okay, what kind of character will tell a story that allows me to show off this world that I like so much? And then from there to a plot that gives you the through line. Because otherwise I would just write travelogues about places that didn't exist, and I can't sell any of those yet, unfortunately.
So do you, when you've decided on a story title to write, do you take the real world as the basic building blocks, or do you start from scratch? How does that come about?
I tend to start with real world, with Webmage, which is basically contemporary fantasy with a Greek mythology underlayer, so that was pretty quick. The Fallen Blade books were a little bit more complex because I wanted the main country, and it takes place on a continent, so there's a lot of things, but the main country is, like I said, it's loosely Heian China, but I pulled late Republican Roman economics, and I had to layer in how expensive is magic, how does magic affect means of production, what magic is cheap enough that people use it regularly, that kind of thing.
And your series is very much set in a world that we would recognize, except for a few differences.
It's secondary world fantasy, but it's everything in it is something that you can find analogs for in history. But I do a lot of pulling from different eras as much as I can, depending on technology level and what I can steal.
And how do you approach that sort of thing?
Well, in the case of my series that's finished, obviously involved a lot of research. In part, I'm just drawing on my general interest in history, but then I came up with the fantasy element, and from there, obviously I had to do a lot of world building, thinking in terms of what conflicts this new element would bring to the familiar Elizabethan world, and then my next idea was, what's my human character who's going to be in court between the clash of these two cultures, since that's the mainspring of the conflict in the book is the clash between the familiar European culture and this very alien culture from
Patrick, yours is also science fiction. Is it important to get the science right in this when you do, or does it not matter as much if it's a completely new universe that you're building?
Well, I think you have to decide at the onset what kind of science universe you're writing. I mean, if you're writing a sci-fi, more of a sci-fi fantasy, like your Star Trek, or I mean, not Star Trek, but your Star Wars or Firefly or whatever, then the sciences I grew up really loving Farscape. I just loved it. They didn't have a physics professor on that show to let them know whether or not they got anything right. They didn't care. Like, that was just totally story and character driven. With the series that I've started, I wanted it to be kind of like a noir film kind of feeling, but still set inside a hard science universe. So yeah, I found myself looking up equations online, trying to figure out, it's like, okay, I've got this 2-kilometer around rotating habitat module, how fast does it have to be spinning to have 1 G of centripetal force on the inside, like trying to figure all that stuff out, and how long will it take to accelerate to 5% of light speed, and just all that stuff. So yeah, you have to figure out what you're writing first, and then you can know whether or not you need to really get super deep into the numbers. And if you want to, write really hard sci-fi, you have to get really deep into the numbers, because these people out here will just they'll do the math. So
I find the best way to short circuit that is to marry a physicist.
And how would you go about that?
Well, I started dating mine when she was in high school and stayed with her all the way through graduate school. So
just show up to particle accelerator parties. Those.
Well, so you've got 3 books so far in your Tau series, and another 3 planned.
Yep.
6 books.
Yep.
I have the utmost respect for any writer who can sit down and put 70, 80, 90,000, 100,000 words together in a coherent narrative. It's a skill I've never been able to master. Why the hell would you want to do that 6 times over?
You want the honest answer?
if it'll get laughs.
For the money.
Yeah, okay.
But I mean, why would I want to do it 6 times over? Okay, well, the thing about and your first series is always going to be like losing your virginity. You know, it's the first set of characters that you really kind of like just attach to that have defined a lot of your early career. So at some point in a series, you're going to get a little fatigued. You know, I wrote the Tau books in a 2-3 year span. So I mean, I wrote, and they're pretty big books. So I wrote them in a short span of time, and I got a little tired of them. It's kind of like, you know, I love my dog, and my dog knows I love her, and no matter, and once in a while, when she wants to play with me, and I gotta work, you know, she's always up in my grill. So sometimes you need a little break from your dog. So, you know, I wrote the first 3 books. I took a break from, you know, from the world, from my characters, from Rowan and Tau, and, you know, and family. And then, you know, after a year, I kind of miss these guys again. I kind of miss the idea, the concept that I had with the aliens and the war that's going on, and I wanted to finish the story. So 6 books is a lot to write, and if you write them back to back to back to back to back to back, then you know you're gonna suffer a little fatigue. But if you take a break and kind of like fall in love again with the story, with the writing, and it doesn't seem that that much work.
I like your honest answer. I did it for the money. It just reminds me of something that Jim Butcher said on the panel in Phoenix last year. Somebody asked him, "Do you have a muse?" He said, "No, I don't have a muse. I have a mortgage." Kelly, does that figure into what you decide to write?
Oh, absolutely. The most recent series that I just finished up for Penguin, I had proposed 3 or 4 things, and my editor said, well, that's nice and that's nice. But very early in this discussion, you said you might be willing to write traditional fantasy, and I think that we're about to get a wave of that here at Penguin, and we'd love you to come up with a proposal. Can you do that? And I said, give me 5 days. And that was simply because that was what she thought was the best place for me in terms of being one of her fast commercial writers. It absolutely plays a huge role.
Are there any pitfalls of writing in the same world over and over again?
I actually find, in some ways, I find it relaxing. The first book in a series always is the most work for me. I tend to write better books as I go along in a series. I need to figure out how to get the first one a little more solid every time. But I know.
The second one.
Oh, if only it were that easy.
Yeah, but knowing all of the characters and knowing the rule set makes it much easier to write the second and third and fourth and fifth and on.
I mean, there's a little bit more to it than just the money. I mean, I gotta walk that back a little bit, because you also want to finish the series, or at least you want to get to a stopping point that you're happy with, that your readers are happy with. You know, there's nothing worse for a writer than like, okay, you're 2 or 5 or whatever amount of books in a series, and it's not done yet, and you don't plan to finish it. It's kind of a weird space to be at. So you feel this need to at least get to a point where you know that when you close that book, you're happy leaving the characters, and the readers will be happy leaving the characters. So that's another motivation.
Okay, so we talked briefly about pitfalls. What are the advantages of writing in the same universe? Patrick.
Well, I just, as he had just said, like I sat down to when the news came through that not only did I get an agent, but then he found a publisher for me, Angry Robot, and they wanted a 2-book deal right out of the bat. I had written the arc to be basically self-contained with like a hint of potential for something more if need be. But like I felt like the way the book had been written, it would be a satisfactory enough experience all by itself. But then they came back and said, well, we'd like 2 books and an option on the third. It's like, okay. So then I sat down and started writing the next book in the series called Trident's Forge, and just as he had said, it started writing itself much easier because you're not inventing characters from scratch. You're not inventing a new world, a new system from scratch. You know, you already have your starting point, and you're not spending nearly so much time just trying, like, someone used to, back when I was in sales for a long time, and they would talk about leads and they'd say, you know, you have to fill the straw. If you fill the straw with enough little beads, the beads will start trickling out the other end eventually. Just keep doing that. Well, writing that first book is you're filling the straw. Writing the second book, the beads are already coming out. So you just have to keep stuffing them in there. So that's definitely an advantage. A disadvantage, I think, is the risk that you're going to end up kind of typecasting yourself, and that's all the readers ever want from you. That makes me nervous because the Ark was actually the third novel I wrote. The first one was a sci-fi comedy because, in addition to being an author, I'm also a stand-up comedian, and so that's something that I really, really enjoyed writing. I haven't found a home for it yet. Lee didn't buy it, but I don't want to bring that up right now. And then the second one was a more traditional high fantasy, and the hard sci-fi kind of semi-serious book is the one that actually hit. So my concern is, a few months from now when this book comes out, is that all anybody's ever going to see me as? And if I try to start selling these sillier, Douglas Adams or Terry Pratchett style books, are people going to go from the hard sci-fi guy? That doesn't make sense.
That's what pseudonyms are for, isn't it? That's what pseudonyms are for.
I don't use pseudonyms for anything, ever.
And your first three books were a trilogy.
Yes, they are.
And
Sorry.
so you got very used to the world and the characters and the magic system. You're currently writing something very different. I'm not going to ask you too much about what that is, because I know you don't love to talk about things before they're ready. But how are you finding the process of creating something outside of this 400,000 words of fiction that you've already created?
And not so much the world building. I find the ideas come to me as I need them. It's really getting into a whole new set of characters and capturing voices and getting some character dynamics going is the really hard part. As some of the other panelists have said, once you've got your characters, you know how they're going to bounce off one another. You know the kind of scenes that are going to work with them. The new characters, it's like, when the new guy starts at work and you don't know, is he cool, is he going to be a real jerk? And you just have to get to know him.
He is, I've met him. So, do you find yourself falling back into, for instance, the same speech patterns that familiar characters will have used before?
I don't know, I don't think so. The two, I've only written a few chapters of this. My new series is going to be secondary world rather than historical. I've written a few chapters, but they're very different characters from the ones in the Knights of Mansfield trilogy. So hopefully, there's bound to be bits of my voice in there, but hopefully they have any voices.
Kelly, Wes mentioned earlier about he wrote his first three books, and then his third book was in a different world, and it acted as a palate cleanser. Is that something that you deliberately use yourself when you're writing?
When I have the time, if I'm on a one book a year schedule, I typically will write one book in the series, and that gives me 6 or 7 free months to write something that's just for fun. I've been on the last 4 years 7 novels, so I wrote one series very much straight through, and then it was a huge jump because I was going from sort of a noir toned assassins in Han China to slightly headed contemporary very, very ridiculous superheroes with like classic 50s Batman sound effects kind of written into it. It was both a gear strip and a palate cleanse.
And Kelly sits down and plots out his world before he does pretty much anything else. Is that how you work?
No. I tend to come up with a bunch of ideas and kind of sketch them out. So I'll have, a very, very rough map, some cultures, some ideas of conflict, some vague idea of an overarching history. And then I come up with the characters I'm going to throw into the story, and I do a fair amount of world building as I go along. That said, I do my research into everything from astrophysics of this fantasy planet down to small details.
What's the worst thing then, as a reader then, rather than as a writer, what's the worst thing for you as you get further into some of these series?
When you can tell that the author's bored. when the author's bored, it shows in their writing and the reader gets bored. I don't know what the names. Yeah, Terry Goodkind.
Wheel of Time.
What?
Wheel of Time.
I don't know if I can. I don't know if he was actually bored. I think he just got overwhelmed. He didn't kill enough characters. Okay. Series, okay, and you're gonna make a lot of new characters. You gotta kill them off. You just gotta. You gotta keep yourself sane. Every three you create, kill two.
That's like the opposite of what George Martin does. Every two he creates, he kills three.
The White Walkers are bored.
There are negative number of characters in the next one.
But yeah, so it's kind of like Terry Goodkind's early works were great, and I read this in an article somewhere. I forgot where, but he had casted into that series with Robert. What's this guy's name? The main character. Richard. Yes. So. And so, like, by the end of the series, he's trying to write new characters, and everybody just wants to know about Richard. So the guy comes in the very end of every book and fixes everything, because, he's been through like 10, 12 books with this guy. And the one time that he wrote, a book outside of that world, his sales dropped like 90%. So, he's got the sort of Arthur Conan Doyle problem where, they just want to read Sherlock Holmes. Don't care
Yeah, audience.
It's your fault.
I think the thing that probably bothers me most in an ongoing series is power creep. If you are structuring a story where your character has repeated triumphs, they tend to accumulate powers or accumulate rank, for example, in the Honor Harrington books. And you hit a point where you're just like, okay, so you can destroy universes with your mind. Why am I reading this?
It's the
I was thinking.
With Superman starting off being able to leap tall buildings in a single bound, and faster than his being bullet, nothing short of an exploding shell that would hurt him, and now he's gone. And you have to amp up.
When you said power creep, I was thinking Honor Harrington in my mind. And you're like the Honor Harrington series. I'm like, yes. But I keep reading them. I can't stop. $25 every year. They're just like, Aaron, just.
But there are writers around who can do this, who can create a single world and have a successful long-running career. I think of people like Terry Pratchett, who wrote almost nothing but Discworld books. There were some exceptions.
That was a little different with. I mean, they were all set in Discworld, but he had the Death books and the Witches books and the Wizard books and the Night Watch books. I mean, he was really tracking a bunch of different a bunch of different storylines within that universe, which I don't know that. Yeah.
I'd suggest Lost the Master Boujon is a good example. The Volkowski saga is 15, 16 books, and they've been going obviously for 20 odd years, and the character grows up, he changes. that some books are just straight out mercenaries in space, action stories. You've got murder mysteries, you've got political intrigue. You've got one of them's Jane Austen style comedy of manners. She takes this one character just all different directions, which just keeps the whole thing interesting.
Well, as the topic is, can you actually leave universe behind? We've been rambling on for about half an hour already without addressing it. Wes, you've got another 3 books in the Town series to come.
Yes.
Is that going to be the end for you?
They're not going to pay me to make it right more. I mean, I can be done if I kill everybody. You know, I mean, right now, I'm working on this partial right now, and I'm like, damn it, this book's going to be 80,000 words, or, you know, but by 79.5K words, I'm going to start dropping a bomb and kill everybody. So yes, you can end the series if you just kill everybody. But obviously for Arthur Conan Doyle, that did not work when he killed Sherlock, so maybe not.
But you know, we're talking fiction. Characters come back all the time. You look at any major comic book, and the lead character has been killed off at least 4 times. Oh my God, he's dead. No, the drama's gone.
But it's already been established in the comic book world that happens. Actually, no, Game of Thrones, they will get back to that too, didn't they?
Daniel Jackson.
Well, I don't know about that. I don't know. I think we'll see. We'll see. But,
Yeah, they probably felt that better for the next season.
yeah. I've got the question.
So did I.
People back in the day.
No, would you come back to the Town series?
You know what?
After 6, because that's going to be what? Well over half a
Yeah,
million
I'm up. That's like a quarter Piers Anthony now, you know. I thought when I finished the Rebirth of Tao that I was done. I was like, this is, you know, I put them in a happy place. I've told the story the way that it should have been told. That closes their storyline, but maybe not the overall theme of the story. And then I found that I kind of missed it after like 2 months. And, you know, in 2 years, after I finish the next 3 books, if I feel that same way, and there's some people who want to read more Tao stuff, then yeah, I'll come back.
But you did, we were talking about the way that Pratchett managed things and told different stories with different characters. You did something similar in the 4th book. You still had if you spoiler alert, not too big a one. You still had the main characters, but concentrated on somebody else with those main characters from the first 2 books. More in the background, certainly reduced to bit players is probably a bit too much, but you didn't tell their story.
I mean, my characters got old. You know, once you get a little older, you get a little bit more injured over time. You know, there's no like power-ups or, you know, health pots that you can drink. So, you know, you lose a little speed, and you lose a little, you're a little wiser though. But, you know, there's a cumulative effect to life. And you know, if I never read on Harrington, and after 25 books, besides getting more powerful, is she like a god?
No, I mean it's still sort of hard sci-fi, but it's like she just keeps like, oh, now she's a master diplomat. Now she's the admiral in charge of, you know, these massive 1,000 dreadnought or super dreadnought battle fleets. Now she's a master. She's a black belt in this new thing. Oh, now she has a pulsar in her arm. Like, what? Slow down.
Yeah. So my guy tried to retire. And then, you know, he had a son, you know, and then he's got to take care of his damn son. His son's in puberty right now with an alien in his head. So there's, you know,
Because puberty isn't bad enough.
It's worse.
I think puberty's a bit like having an alien.
I was going to say, that's...
whispering all these things to you. Oh God. Anne, would you ever be tempted to go back?
If I had story ideas that I wanted to tell in that world, I mean, the original trilogy, I had a story arc for the main character, and that's kind of wrapped up by the end. You know, no sorry, spoilers, but that's wrapped up by the end of the trilogy. And I like the characters, but I don't have any more story for them. there's plenty of space in the world for more stories, and if one occurred to me, I'm not going to go back now, but to get more stories.
So Kelly, you get to the end of the series and you think, that's it, that's done. I've told the story I want to tell. And the publisher comes over and says, hey, I've got this checkbook.
That generally works for me. With my most recent series, it was bought as a three standalone books that are sequential. So I had a 1-book arc for each and a 3-book arc for them. And then they were doing really well. My publisher came back and said, "You want to do another one?" And I said, "Okay." So I need a 1-book arc and a 4-book arc. And at that point, I had also plotted out a 6-book arc, an 8-book arc, and a 9-book arc. And it ended with the 6-book arc. I'm perfectly happy with it being done there. But if someone comes along with a giant checkbook and says, "Hey, can you write out to the end of this 9-book arc?" I will say, "Oh yes, that would be lovely. Thank you." But my earlier series, they were really entirely standalone, and I got to a point where I was like, I can't stand these people anymore, especially the one that's most like me. I need to leave them alone. Although at this point, I've got 2 or 3 book plot outlines for that world too. So it goes on in my head, but I don't feel a need to continue it, short of someone really waving the checkbook, I think.
Yeah. Oh, good question, Zach.
You finish a series, you put it to bed, you tell the publisher, I'm done. The publisher comes back and says, we've got a guy or a gal that's got some brilliant ideas. Can you franchise out your universe?
How many zeros on that check?
Yeah.
Before or after the decimal point?
It don't matter. How many zeros? Figure that all out.
Oh,
I'll answer, yeah.
If it doesn't matter, I've got a proposal for you. Okay, well, let's go to Ellen on that one. Would you mind somebody else playing in your sandpit? That's not a euphemism, by the way.
I guess it would depend who it was. I've got a particular angle on my world. I guess I want to know if somebody wasn't going to sort of mess with the core flavour of it. You know what I mean?
Kelly?
I think I would actually, I would kind of enjoy that in some ways. I would want to see what they wanted to do, but it would be kind of fun to see what someone else has done with some of the worlds I've put together.
Patrick, it's probably a little early to talk
Yeah.
about yours, but in principle.
In principle, I haven't seen it done well yet. And I haven't read Brandon Sanderson's conclusions to the Wheel of Time arc. So I've heard very good things about that. I just haven't personally read it. But like when I have picked up other authors who are picking up series that I've enjoyed, I'm always left wondering. It's like, did they just not like? Are we as consumers so dedicated to the idea of a series that we want it to continue even when the creator itself doesn't want it to continue? That always bothered me. Like when somebody dies, maybe, all right, whatever, let's try and keep it going. But like, so oftentimes these were people that were still alive, and just didn't decided, like, no matter what they were being waved in front of them, they didn't want to do it anymore. There's and in fact, there's one I can think of really specifically. It was Michael Stackpole's X-Wing Squadron books. It was handed off to another author who was a really good author, by the way, and whose other work I've enjoyed. But it just didn't quite work for me because it wasn't that series. But here I am. I bought the damn books, so I guess I'm part of the problem.
There's a difference though between the question was, you finished the series, so they wanted the author to write in that world. That's different from what Brandon Sanderson could do, which is finish the Wheel of Time. Finish the Wheel of Time is, I'm sorry, somebody's had to finish it, because there's A lot of us spend like 20 years reading the damn series.
No, he's right. That's an important distinction. Yeah.
Unless you drop the bomb and kill everybody, I want some closure here. So that's a different scenario than the question is like your question is more like, now that we've had Dragon Ball out of Twilight, let's do the more series based in that world, based in that sandbox, but from different authors. And I think I think if it was carefully managed, that'd be a great idea.
Yeah, I've seen it done well in genre outside of tie-in. Tie-in, they've done really any number of them that work pretty well. But Roland Green's continuation of H.B. and Piper's Cross Calvin, Great King's War is actually a lovely book. It's about 3 times as long as the original, but it really captures the flavor and I think it's really well done.
I think you can make an argument for continuing in the world, but maybe not the characters.
Okay, I'm going to flip the question then. Because the question was, would you mind somebody else playing in your sandbox? Go to Wes on this. Would you write in somebody else's world?
No, I would not. I actually asked my agent about that because I wanted to, and he goes, "No, you do not."
That's a completely different distinction. Though you would want to.
Well,
What sort of thing would you want to do?
all right, I want to do a Star Wars book, okay? And I was like, I wanted to do a Star Wars book my entire life. Can I write a Star Wars book? He goes, "No, I'm not letting you do it." And and a lot of it's the business reasons. There's a lot of when you write tie-in, tie-in's great. The pay's pretty good, but you're playing somebody else's sandbox. You're playing by their rules. They will dictate to you, many times. So what you can do. Obviously, you can't kill anybody. I mean, you'd be like, I'm gonna kill out Chewie. You can't do that. So Chewie's gonna live, dude. On top of that, you don't get foreign rights. You don't get movie options. There's a lot of logistics involved with writing other people's sandbox that you have to deal with. And as much as all of us at one point wanted to write Star Wars, right? I'm assuming everybody did, because you did. You are
Fair enough.
You are weird. but So my current answer is no. I have seen the
It's a no, but.
no but yes.
Okay, Kelly, would you leaving aside franchise books like Star Wars, Star Trek, what have you, would you pick up somebody else's baton?
Oh, absolutely. In fact, I've done it. At this point, only in short, but Roger Zelazny's Changeling books. I wrote a short story that'll be out in a Zelazny tribute anthology sometime soon. The book's done. They're waiting for Neil Gaiman to write the afterwards, so it could be a bit. But yeah, I've done it, and there is some suggestion that since that was an unfinished trilogy, the first 2 books were written, it may be that I'll be picking up and writing the 3rd book in that series, and I had a ball doing it. It was a lot of fun.
Any other questions?
Well, not just other people taking your work and writing new stories, but what about other formats? Would you like to see a TV series?
Yes.
Would you want it to be a retelling or a sequel or a side story?
I know if I had a dollar for every time some well-meaning person said, "So when's a movie of your book coming out?" I might be able to buy a drink. But yeah, other media would be good.
Yeah, I've got a full cast audio play of all 6 Blade books. It's in production right now with it's abridged and with sound effects, effectively radio plays. I'm really looking forward to seeing those.
This has just been optioned. Is it Michael Bay? Yeah.
My official response is no comment. That's what I've been told to say.
You've already put it on Facebook, Wesley.
So that's a loud book. But yeah, I think.
So you can all be disappointed by the Michael Bay movie in about 3 years. It's going to be great.
If it's a Bad Boys like, then it's great.
And it's The Rock. Fantastic.
Yeah.
It's Armageddon.
Transformers 3. It's going to be.
No.
that movie didn't exist. I don't think that there are very many authors alive who wouldn't want to see their work adapted, partly because a TV series and the movie will help push sales of the books themselves, and partly because you get money for it. And very often you'll find that once production started on a TV series or a film, you're probably going to get paid more than you did for your book.
I mean, it's also every author's dream to see like the stuff that was in their head when they were writing these stories come to life. That you can actually see and hear and experience from medium. So,
I mean, even complete stuff that doesn't earn us money, like fan art. Fan art is so cool.
Yeah, I had the joy of watching a short play that had taken two of my characters from my first series as the inspirations for their particular set of Greek gods. So, Eris and Thalia, and it was a ball to get to see that. I didn't make any money out of it, but.
Again, a lot of the time the money will come from an uplift in sales. I was interviewing Charlene Harris last year, and I was asking her about the incredible wealth that she's accumulated since HBO made True Blood. And she said, yeah, I've made some money off that. I said, but almost every cent of it was through people getting to know that the books existed and buying the books. So she made more an uplift in sales of the books themselves than from the TV series, which was quite surprising actually.
that happens actually in most cases. The money's, I mean, unless you're involved in actual production, the money's pretty nice, but it's the sales, it's the new interest in the books that really.
Especially with TV.
Yeah. And with, I think there's a whole, like, the generation of authors like me and Wes, we're pretty close to the same age, and like we all grew up watching movies. We read books too, but like the movies is what really, and then TV is what really got us into the genre. And so to kind of come full circle like that, and I think it reflects in a lot of the books that you read today. A lot of the books that are out there, their pacing is more informed by what you see on the screen than what you've been reading classically.
Yeah, I mean, all the writing books now push the inlay out early, so that you don't have lots of preamble at the beginning of the chapter or scene. You don't spend too long tying up a scene, and that's very much affected by the pacing of the TV show, where there are much more dramatic cuts and jumps to new scenes.
I would just twist your question slightly and ask Kelly, is there anything that would prevent you from selling one of your books to a particular producer?
No, I'm very comfortable with the idea that my job as an author, where it comes to television or movie or whatever, is to say, well, yes, that sounds lovely. Does this check cash? It does. I'm sure that they will do a wonderful job with this property. Well, and my sense is there is nobody in television or movies who's not trying to make the best possible production. Sometimes it doesn't happen that way, but I would be willing to let most people give it a shot.
Questions? Looking green.
Has there ever been a universe that you wanted to see disappear?
This one sometimes. Okay, so has there ever been a universe you wanted to see disappear? Wes?
Take it back to me. I'm trying to rank them right now.
Okay, Anne?
Oh gosh, I can't think of an answer right now. Sorry.
So do you mean that for people not to write that universe anymore, or just for it to be obliterated from the annals of history?
Either one, like whether it's just not continued anymore, like, okay, this universe has had everything explained in it, stop trying to bring new stuff in, or
So like anything after Terminator 2?
Oh, God.
Season 5, Babylon 5? Because that was kind of, okay, we're going to get cancelled, we're going to wrap up the story, and it was dramatic ending and this raid, and then, oh, we've got some more money, let's make some more episodes and have singing telepaths.
It's not quite what happened. That was a terrible tragedy, because he had written it out to be a 5 series.
Well, yes, I know that.
Yeah,
but
and then they told him, okay, well, you've got, after 4 series, we're going to cancel you, and then So season 4 is 2 seasons worth of material crammed in together, and it's really obvious. And then they're like, hey, your ratings were great, so we're gonna give you that season 5 you asked for. And he's like, I'm gonna kill all of you. But yeah, like season 5 of Babylon 5 is like, you don't have a purpose for existing.
There's things that I would like my time back for, but I don't think there's anything that I would want to see go away, because so much of what we do is in conversation with that, both positive and negative.
I'm gonna go Star Trek series after Deep Space Nine.
No, Enterprise was good.
Enterprise is not.
Yeah, Enterprise was good. Season 4 Enterprise was the best.
Like 4 good episodes.
No, season 4 Enterprise was the best season of Star Trek in years.
Oh,
Go back, watch it again. It's on Netflix. I'm telling you.
I'm pretty sure the audience is on my thing.
That's fine.
Okay, well, we're going to have to have a vote on this. No, we're not. Any other questions? Gentlemen in front.
How much of the fandom gravity would affect going back into one of your universes? Like, you mentioned Neil Gaiman a couple times and things like that. He seems to always end up writing another book or another story or another medium for a lot of his business. So, I mean, and a lot of it seems to be fan-driven. So, how much of that would affect you going back to one of your universes?
So if you've finished the story, there's nothing else you want to tell, and the publishers are happy with the story staying where it is, but all of a sudden something happens and your story just catches the public imagination again, and people are grabbing it and wanting more. Would despite the fact that you think it's finished and the publisher thinks it's finished, would fan pressure get you to climb back on that horse?
Yes.
Probably. My experience with fan mail on things that I have closed down is one of those things where I will get some particularly impassioned and long piece of fan mail that will make me think about that world again in a way that I may not have quite the love for it that I used to, but the seeing that love for it is exciting.
So it's not necessarily the volume of fan pressure that you get, but something well thought out and well considered that makes you just look at it in a different way.
Yeah, the level of engagement.
Anna?
It would be nice to have that in
A vaguely related question. What do you think about, you talked about publishers writing in your universes. What do you think about your fans writing in your universes, like fan fiction and stuff, things like that?
I personally am delighted when people write fan fiction. I don't want to see it, but I think it's marvelous. Again, it shows that engagement with things. I suspect that in my will, anything that isn't actively out, I will release under Creative Commons. That's currently what I'm thinking. Just till I think that'll keep the work alive better, and people will have fun with it.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, for legal reasons, it's a good idea not to read fan fiction of your own work, because there's always a chance that, if you'd come up with an idea that you were going to write about, and somebody puts that into fan fiction, and then you write about it, you could get people saying, well, that was my idea, I wrote this story, you ripped off my fan
You
fiction.
ripped off my ripped off story.
Yeah.
Each.
It could get,
There's
it might not have any kind of legal standing, but it could make you look bad in the eyes of your fans if they believed that you ripped off a piece of fan fiction, for example.
Well, there was actually a fairly messy lawsuit involving Marion Zimmer Bradley and some of that
Right,
stuff.
yeah.
So it is. It
There
can be
there were several
legally-
messy things involved in Mary Poppins and the Run.
Oh yes.
Yeah.
Okay, anything else? At the back.
If you could get any actor or actress to play your main character, who would it be?
Oh,
Aim Turner.
And is that because he suits the part, or you just want to see him on set?
No, he is one of the people who I kind of based my hero on. You know, having seen Pole Dark as well as Double Bit and stuff, I think he can do well justice. Him or Santiago Cabrera from The Musketeers.
Wes?
I've been asked that question a lot lately, so I've been OCDing a little bit on either Ryan Gosling or Channing Tatum. Because like you can turn it like because it's kind of like you want somebody who can act, you want somebody who will bring women to the theaters, you want somebody who in the case of a time salvager who is athletic, smart, but a little dense. And to be honest, not quite likable. I mean, this goes through my head. So it's like he's like the guy that when you first meet him, you don't really like him. You're supposed to like him, and you hang out with him. You don't really like him anyway, but you know that you're supposed to eventually like him. At the end of the day, no matter what you do, you don't really like him. So I'm challenging you to a fight at the bike rack, and like neither of you guys show up. That's.
So you have put some thought into it.
I have.
Okay.
It's something I periodically think about, but my references for modern actors who are of the right age aren't great. I would actually like to, more than anything, to see what someone else would come up with, because I wouldn't want my vision for those characters to dominate the different media.
Patrick?
Olivia Wilde. My main character is a 6'2" African American man, but I'd still want Olivia Wilde to play because she's. Anyway.
She's what? I didn't quite catch that. She's what? Okay. I think we've probably got time for another couple of questions. So, anybody out there have one?
George R. Martin talks about. George. Talks about that there are two different types of writers. There's the architect who plots everything out, piece by piece, what's going to happen, and then the gardener, which plants seeds and lets it grow into whatever it becomes. Do one of these have a more likely chance of not returning to the series?
I don't think. I think we had a very similar panel last year about authors who plan versus authors who fly by the seat of their pants. And on the panel were some very successful authors that fell into both camps. So well, what do you think about that? You were on that panel.
My sense is that I don't think it really affects how much of a series is going to happen, because it is not at all uncommon for a structuralist to build a very definite end and then suddenly come up with some new structures. And it is equally the case for the gardeners. Although I don't think there's really a strong lean one way or the other on that.
You said it.
Time for one more question before we wrap up.
As a writer, what do you struggle with more? Like, do you struggle with writing action scenes or maybe dialogue versus like descriptions?
Okay, so what do you struggle with more as a writer? Taking time out from counting the money in your in your gold doubloon pit of wealth.
Gold standard, baby. That's some of the.
It's like Scrooge McDuck.
I mean, I struggle with staying off the internet. That would be it. In terms of writing, I think.
So writing books essentially.
Yeah.
I think plot. I'm more of a gardener than an architect, so I'm very good at putting characters in a situation and heading them off, and then I run out of steam because I'm not sure what they're going to do next.
For me, it's varied enormously over time. It was plot for a while, it was character for a while, it was flying prose. Basically, what I try and do with each new book is what is the thing that I am currently weakest on. I'm going to build the plot for this story around that thing so that I will either get much better at it or smash face first into a brick wall?
Sticking to an outline. I'm really bad at that. But I've found the outlines are really important because the first couple books I wrote, I had just the barest idea of what I was doing. But then the arc was the first time I actually wrote a complete outline out and went, yeah, this is like, now I just have to write the damn thing. You know, like I knew exactly what the story was going to be, and it wrote very quickly because of that. And having that experience of having it actually done in my head before I even started putting pen to paper was really helpful. But the outlines, they tend to wander. So that, like this book, Trident Swords, right now, it's kind of coming back to where it was supposed to be, but it took about 15 chapters. So yeah.
Okay, then the very last question. You're going to start at that end, come back this way in no more than one sentence, and you can't have multiple semicolons. I know what you buggers are like. Can you ever leave a universe behind, Patrick?
Yes, I think so. There's plenty of authors who have done it and managed to transition over to something else. So.
Absolutely. Brackets, unless someone pays you.
Yeah, I think when you're done, you're done.
Sure. See, now if we'd asked this question right at the very beginning, we could have all been in the bar now. That's come to the end of our panel. I'd just like to thank you for coming to see it, and to thank my panelists, Patrick Tomlinson, if you enjoyed this panel, my name's Lee Harris. If you didn't, it's Paul Cornell.